Hello everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than I normally do with my craft videos. And I'm going to talk to you about something that I get asked about frequently. And that is the decluttering and organizing process for my craft room. So I thought I would take a little bit about what I'm learning in school, in my psychology studies, as well as my own personal experience, and share with you some helpful tips of how you can make your space exactly the serene, happy place that you've always wanted. If you're feeling overwhelmed with all of the things that you have in your space, or maybe there's no rhyme or reason to it, and you're looking for a little bit of encouragement, keep watching. Okay, so I actually kept the boxes behind me in the video frame. I didn't care to clean them up. Quite honestly, I don't have any more space in my room to put them because I am in the middle of a massive purge. I am going through and decluttering a lot of my items that I'm no longer using. And I'm going to talk to you about why I became okay with doing that. The first thing though, heading into this video that I want you to do for yourself is to give yourself grace. Start there. If you're in this process and it's been daunting to you, or you've been going back and forth with it for a while, I really need you to just pause and take a second and give yourself some grace. Give yourself space to figure out the next steps. A lot of times we are met with a process of being overwhelmed with life, juggling all of these things, and we just are even harder on ourselves of why can't our space be a certain way already? And I just want to really encourage you that that's not going to be helpful. Give yourself space to figure out what it is that you want to do. It could take a while for you to get there, and that's okay. It can be a process. It doesn't have to be an overnight thing. Another reason that I want you to be kind to yourself throughout this process is that likely you didn't get where you are in your craft room overnight. You probably took years to accumulate a lot of things. And over the years, things have changed for you. Your life circumstances have changed as well as your interests. And so there's really no use in harping on all the things you coulda, woulda, or should have done, thus making it even more cloudy in your brain. So let's just all take a deep breath together. And we'll get through. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is go through your craft room. And remember when I said this might take more than a day or a week? Because this part right here, I really want you to be honest about. I want you to take time, and I don't want you to feel rushed. If you're going to do this right the final time, then take the time to do this step. Go through your craft room and look at the items that you have. And this could be this is useful for any room that you're decluttering. Mark down really what things in that room are relevant to your life right now. So let's go back to the craft room because that's really why you're probably here. When I walk around my space, I look at the items that I have and I think about, are these things that I'm actively using? Are these things that I either have a timeline that I'm going to try it, maybe it's a new technique, or are they things that I just don't have the time and space for in my life anymore? One of the big examples that I want to give you for me is my iron-on and vinyl process. So mostly iron-on. So I have this heat press here that I got from HTV Ront. And I also have a handheld press. I can take a look at my large press and I love it. It's a fantastic machine. And all of the thousands, probably at this point, iron-ons and regular vinyl pieces that I have. I don't use regular vinyl for hardly anything. I do have a Cricut machine. I have a Cricut Joy. And like I said, I have 2 hot presses to put the iron-ons down. That is just too much inventory for the amount of time that I spend doing this particular hobby. I really don't. It's not part of my crafting business, and I don't even do it in a joyful way as a hobby. So for me, it was getting honest about letting go of some of those things. I also have to take into account what my life circumstances are right now at this time. I have a daughter in high school, a son in 6th grade. I'm a full-time student. I run 2 businesses, and I like to have time for myself somewhere in there as well. And so really, I'm not going to be willing to giving up some of my downtime to a hobby that I really don't want to spend time on. So why keep it? And this is one of the things I want you to consider while you're going through your space as well. What pieces of it are you just keeping just because maybe you bought it? That really brings me into the next piece. Okay, so this brings me to my third point, which is understanding why we hold on to things. I really feel like getting to the root cause of the reasons that we keep these items in our place and what it's actually doing to us is a really important piece to letting go. The first reason that you might keep something is for nostalgia. It might have sentimental value. You may have made it. Maybe it's the first thing that you made and you just want to keep it. I would be really cautious about letting go of some of those really important things. Now, if you assign nostalgia or sentimental value to absolutely everything, then I would ask that maybe you look a little bit deeper into some of those things that you really, really want to keep. But that is a reason for some of us to keep things. For me, as I have grown through this process of really wanting to declutter my whole house, I don't feel obligation to keep things anymore. I love that people gifted me items, but just because someone gifted it to me, if it doesn't hold a certain practical reason in my life right now, or if it's not handmade, then I probably am not going to keep it. And so that's just my philosophy that I've sort of moved into, and I feel okay about it. So think about that if it's one of the reasons why you're keeping your stuff. Another reason we might keep items is the what if. Oh, the great what if. What if I need this someday? I think that is something I have used far too many times in my space. What if I need this? It's not going to be there. What I do in this circumstance is I really ask the question of myself, when is the last time you reached for this? When is the last time you needed it? And I have a timeline for myself. And if I haven't touched something in over a year, I'm not going to need it. And if there is some chance that I need that particular thing again, or my whole project just goes to crap, then I could always rebuy it. But what ends up happening is that I will find myself reaching for something that I quote unquote need, and then I don't have it. And so I just find an alternative thing to use. That happens all the time. In fact, sometimes I just don't want to get up out of my chair and look for the thing that I need, and I just find another way to do it. So I know me, and I know that I'm not going to need that item. Keep that in mind when you're telling yourself, what if I need it? The third reason that we might hold on to stuff is out of pure guilt. Now, I know that I have been guilty of buying too much. In fact, I've repurchased the same product a couple times. I know, I'm not alone. But the thing about this is, if I'm holding on to something and making it take up space in my physical inventory, which is therefore taking up space in my mental inventory, it's just not worth it anymore. The money is already gone. I already spent the money. It's gone. I'm not going to recoup money every week by keeping this product in my inventory. That was a huge wall for me to climb. I wanted to keep everything because I bought it. And really the guilt was heavy when I would buy something and it wasn't even opened. It's just brand new, still in its package, never been used, never been loved. So what I decided to do is I decided that those are the things that I know if I'm not going to use them, I'm going to donate them or I'm going to de-stash them. I'm going to recoup a little bit of that money and then put it towards either a fundraiser that I usually do on my channel, or I'm going to put it towards some products that I know I'm going to need to restock. So I really want you to consider, if you're holding on to items because you feel guilty for spending the money on them, you're not going to get money back from keeping them. Okay. And for me, my whole process of decluttering my space is so that I can have more creative freedom and declutter my mind in the process. I have been finding, I probably should have said this in the beginning, but I've been finding that the more I'm having close in on me in my craft room, the less I want to be in there and the less I want to create. And so that was a really important piece for me, is no more guilt. Now, the fourth reason you might be holding on to items may be a little bit deeper. So I just want to encourage you to do a little bit of self-reflection for why you may be keeping those things. Ask yourself that simple question. You don't have to know the answer right away, but why do I have all this stuff? Or why do I continue to buy these particular things that I don't use? Ask yourself the question and then try to do a little bit of introspection to find out what it might be. I know a friend of mine that didn't grow up with a whole lot. And so the opportunity that he had to buy things for himself, it was really a compensation for him not having that ability to do so when he was younger. And it became a little bit too much of an overaccumulation of items. After a while, he got to the root of why he was doing it, and then he was able to break out of that. So just ask yourself maybe that simple question. All right, so I want to encourage you once again to do this mindset work first, because I really think it's going to pay dividends when you actually are ready to sit down in your space and look at all of your inventory and decide what's right for you. Now that you've done that and you're ready to move into the next part, let's talk about 3 possibilities for you as you declutter your space. Number 1, you can donate. I mentioned previously before, there may be areas around you where you can donate your craft goods. There's the thrift store, the Goodwill, those areas. I personally like to see some of the higher end craft supplies go to other crafters or places where I know they're going to make time for arts and crafts. That's an option for you. Just look around in your local area. Another option that you can do is you can de-stash them. You can actually try to sell them and recoup a little bit of that money. So if you decide to de-stash, I get this question a lot. There's a couple ways that you can do it. You can check out Facebook groups that allow selling and see what their processes are. You can set up an Etsy shop. There are places as well like Craigslist. You can have a garage sale. Facebook Marketplace is a good one too. Those are some of the ways that you can try to de-stash your items. That might be a good idea for some of those big one-off maybe tools that you want to get rid of. That might help you out to do so that way. I plan on trying to de-stash the big heat press on Facebook Marketplace. I think that's pretty much the easiest way. And I'm going to have a whole toolkit to go with it. So I'm hoping that that sweetens the deal a little bit for the buyer. So those are just some options for you to de-stash your items. The third thing you can do is some of the things that are just not usable anymore or past their expiration date, if you will, is to just toss them. So that's another. I rarely toss craft supplies just because I know that a lot of them are just repurposeful, reusable. That's the word. So I just usually, if it's all else and I can't de-stash it or I don't think anyone would really buy it, I put it in the donate pile. But there is the toss option if it's junky or it's broken or whatever. All right, so let's get into the portion here of how are we going to organize this? Well, this is a big question. The first thing that you really need to understand, once you've decluttered and you have what you want, you need to understand yourself. Because the way that I organize things may not be the way you like to organize things. There are people who love to see their items out and about right in front of them. They like them at a hand's reach. And then there are people who like everything tucked away, labeled in their spot, out of sight, for them to pull out when they want to and put away when they're done. It really depends on you. I follow the Clutterbug. Her name is Cassie, and she has this huge YouTube channel, and she's all about organization. One of the videos she talks about different organizing styles. I would highly recommend that you learn a little bit about yourself to know how you should organize your stuff, because once you do that, it's going to be so much more fulfilling when you sit into your craft space and you play. I'm kind of a hybrid, so I like to have all the things I use at a craft session every day. I like to have those in my arm's reach. It's okay if I see them as long as my desk is big enough to hold those items and then I have a nice open space for me to work on. But I also like things tucked away. So if I don't use them through every craft session, then I like my 2 drawers down where I sit. I can still reach everything and I can put it back easily. For example, I have my Stampin' platform is put away right to my right, as well as some of my mats that I use, my adhesives, things like that. So they don't have to be out onto my desk through the entire crafting session. I can just pull it out, use what I want, and put away. Everything that's not at an arm's reach, that's going to be stuff that I use once in a while. That's certain types of paper, stamps, some other tools or techniques. So I don't always use alcohol ink for my projects, and so I have an entire bin dedicated to alcohol inks. That keeps things really nice and organized over in its space. This way, when I'm ready to use it, I pull it over to my craft desk. It's all right there. I can pack it all away and put it back. That's really how I like to have a lot of the one-off techniques, but I do keep my inks really close to me because I use them almost in every project. And so it just makes sense. When you're organizing, you can also consider what are some of the items in your space that you love for decor. So for example, I have, I think, almost every single pops of color that exists. So do I need all this? No, I don't. I am very well aware that I don't need all those, but I don't think I'm ready to get rid of them because they are actually part of my decor. I love the rainbow colors. I think they're so pretty, and I do use them here and there. There's a couple I have favorites, but I'll probably destash those eventually. Not right now though. Keep about some of those items too, and maybe you can actually incorporate them into your craft space. So I had a question from someone who asked me my opinion about how they could part with pattern paper that they absolutely love, but found that they were hoarding it a lot and not using it. It's a great question, and I think a lot of us can understand the sentiment behind it because pattern paper is so pretty. Here's what I would recommend for that. If there are a couple pieces that you just absolutely love, go to the Dollar Tree or someplace inexpensive and buy some frames and frame your favorite sheets. Use it as your decor on your wall. This way you can always see them, you can look at them whenever you like, and you won't feel bad when you go through the rest of it and start cutting it up and using it for projects. That's one thing that you can do with some of your items is you really don't want to part with them, then display them and just have them as part of your environment. Okay, so this isn't a craft room tour yet. I'm going to continue to go through and declutter and get rid of a lot of things. In fact, I really want to redesign my space. And I also want to make a better reading nook for myself. School is requiring me to do a whole lot of reading. So I want a little bit more of a comfortable vibe for that. And so I am in the works for that. I have some ideas. So I'm not ready for a room tour just yet. So I won't be going through and talking about more of my space right now and how I organize until that's finished. However, I do want to encourage you to take a look at your space, think about what we talked about today, and then moving forward, my final point is to really consider maintenance. Now, how do we maintain our spaces? Again, it's personal preference how you do that. I know that some people, like when I'm working on a project and it's ongoing, I just leave everything. As long as I've covered my ink pads and closed up my glue bottle, I can walk away and leave it. It doesn't bother me because I know I'm coming back to finish it. But once those projects are complete, I have to clean up. See, that's me. That might not be you. You might not care at all. I just know I have to have a fresh surface to start a new project. So that part is purely up to you. But what I do want to talk about in this section is that I've noticed for me, and quite possibly for you as well, that this hobby has really 4 parts to it. And I want to talk about those parts and how we can get a little bit imbalanced with it, causing us to not really enjoy our hobby or space as much. 4 parts to our hobby. And if I'm missing any, by all means, put them in the comment section because I want to hear if you've added one. Number 1 would be buying supplies. That can be a very overwhelming thing, and we do it quite frequently. So I remember when I was starting out in this craft, there was only one place that I purchased from. There was no online shopping really at that time. And so we really just went to parties, we purchased, and that was it. Now it's at every online store that we see. It's everywhere. It's in every video we watch. And so buying has turned into sort of one of the parts of the hobby. When you get the stuff, you then have to put it away in some sort of order. So number 2 to this hobby would be organizing. Now I enjoy, if I don't have a lot of creative mojo, I enjoy organizing my things. I like to have everything put away a certain way, and it just makes me feel good when I'm ready to go use it. But it also, I've noticed, has been taking up a lot of my time. So that's another reason why I don't want to buy as much anymore and I want to purge, because I just need a smaller inventory for what I'm interested in doing. But organizing my supplies sometimes can be part 2 of this hobby. Part 3, which let me know if I'm alone on this one. I sense I'm not. Part 3 is watching tutorials on other people's cards or crafts. Now, this is very enjoyable. I feel like it's a nice little downtime for me to do. I really love it. In fact, I watch all kinds of crafting videos, not just card making. And I want to be clear that I think that's a fun part of the hobby. But what ends up happening for me and a lot of people that I know that have reached out to me is they find themselves constantly watching, then buying what they're using, then getting it home, maybe organizing it, and then it just sits. So the part that's potentially out of balance here for the hobby is the actual creating. We have 4 parts, and if each is getting fair airtime to each other, that means you're only crafting 1/4 of the time. So I want you to consider your balance. What do you want to do more of? Do you want to do more watching, less buying, more creating? How can you flip these scales so that you're enjoying the process a lot more? For me, it's a whole lot less buying. I watch someone's tutorial and I know I probably have something comparable in my stash. And if not, if I need something new or I want something new, I go get it. So I'm really trying not to buy as much. I also really enjoy the process of trying to see if I can come up with something similar. That part is really creative. So I love tutorials and pictures to give me inspiration to get in there. So if I feel like I don't really have a lot of creative juices flowing, I will take to YouTube or Pinterest or Instagram and I will jot down some ideas of things that I want to try. So that's one way that I use tutorials to help me get in my craft room instead of just keeping me from it. Another idea is to actually watch those videos while you're crafting. So you're crafting along with somebody. That's another thing that I like to do as well. So consider where your balance is, because if you started this hobby and you have a whole bunch of items and you really haven't gotten a chance to use any of them, maybe before you do the great purge for yourself, maybe give yourself an opportunity to figure out the balance a little bit better so that you can get in there and try some of those things. And you might find that you use up the product and not have to give it away. So that is something to consider as well. Okay, so that will do it. My top tips for decluttering, destashing, organizing, and really just trying to figure out how to bring your space into the joyful experience that it should be for you. I am really excited to get this project underway. I've already done so much work in my craft room, and I am really looking forward to continuing that and then redesigning it in a way that fits me now, because things are evolving and changing in my life, and so I want my space to reflect that as well. I am so excited that you stopped by to hang out with me. Do let me know in the comment section if you have any specific questions or if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see in a future video with regard to this topic. I'd love to jump on here and share some more. So that's it. I'll see you all in the comments down below and in the next video. Bye-bye. Hey, before you go, did you know that I do live online classes every single month? I would love to have you join me. Be sure to click the link in the description box below and you can find out from my website when our next class is coming, as well as how to register, and you can even access all the replays that I've done so far. Now, if you're new to my classes, let me just give you a little bit of information. For one, I do have an all-access pass on my website where you can purchase every single replay as well as 2 self-paced module courses, all for a very reduced price. So the sales change every now and again, but right now today it's 50% off of $25. So you'll get all of that content, over 24 hours of content for $12.50. So check that out in the description box below. Also, when we have live classes come up, I like to keep the price pay what you can so that more people can join us. More the merrier, I really believe that. And so also it may be a new technique to you, or you've never joined our live classes before and you just kind of want to check it out. So you can find the upcoming classes and information over on my website. I have the year's calendar laid out. All right, I hope I see you in class. If not, I'll see you in the next YouTube video. Bye-bye.